In the last year, the Common Core has become a lot more politically controversial in many states, primarily states in the South and Midwest. But a great exception is California, where the legislature just approved $450 million more for Common Core implementation, on top of $1.25 billion appropriated and signed by the governor in 2013. Nationally, the scene is one of strong Tea Party and Republican Party pushback in some states. This has led to states mostly dropping out of the testing consortium for Common Core, but not dropping the standards themselves. In other words, politicians have tried to compromise in most states by saying, well, we won't do any of the national tests, there's two of them, PARCC and Smarter Balanced, but we'll keep the standards, and we'll tweak the Common Core standards and call them our own state standards. So people need to be careful as they read the news about states drop Common Core. First of all, often they just drop a national assessment and they'll choose another assessment from a commercial vendor or from a nonprofit vendor like ACT. The states that do drop the Common Core standards, meaning standards on what students must know and be able to do, they will really be tweaking, I think, the Common Core standards as indicated by Indiana. So Common Core still has a lot of life. There's still 43 out of the original 46 states using Common Core. And I think that you'll see more agitation to drop it and more pushback to keep it. The scene nationally then is one of reconsideration, particularly in states that have Republican legislators that are concerned that this is a federal takeover of education. They call it Obama Core. And so they end up, after they repeal it, with something called Indiana Core or Florida Core, but it looks a lot like the Common Core. Of course, the Common Core standards people believe that, and I think have the data, that the Common Core standards were not promulgated by the federal government, but led by a consortium of state groups, the National Governors Association, and the Council of Chief State School Officers, the state superintendents of schools. So this controversy is raging and will keep going. I think it'll be an issue in the 2016 campaign. And I look for the big impact that all this pushback on Common Core has is that the federal government has stepped back entirely from supporting Common Core verbally or saying anything about it. Secretary Duncan only talks about high standards or college-ready standards. And so they have, through this political pushback, been able to, I think, stymie the federal role. But the states are rolling on. California supplies more money. We field tested about 3 million pupils with a full field test of the Common Core. That includes a performance exam, which takes you get a single task, and you take an hour if you're in the elementary grades to do this task, or an hour and a half if you're in the secondary grades. This is something like actually driving the car for your driver's test rather than just taking a test that has various questions on it. So California continues to have very little potent political opposition to this. The legislature has given its full support. The two teacher unions have given their full support. All state officials, and especially Governor Brown, have signaled their support. So we're on a path of full implementation of the assessment in 2015. That being said, as I wrote in my paper, the Common Core, it changes almost everything. It changes, so many things need to happen for in-depth classroom implementation. First of all, the teachers need to know how to teach the Common Core. California is still phasing in professional development and will not be done with that, certainly by 2015. School districts are still purchasing new instructional materials. Some have not at this point. The English Language Arts State Curriculum Framework will be approved next month, July of 2014. So many districts are waiting in part on that. So I see the actual implementation of Common Core rolling out over several years, and I hope that by 2019-2020 school year, we'll see it deeply embedded in most classrooms. So that's a brief update of Common Core, where on the one hand we have a mixed pattern of states. Some states pausing, some states, a few states, 2 or 3, repealing the standards, about 10 states reconsidering using one of the national assessments that were funded by the U.S. Department of Education called Smarter Balanced Assessment, or PARC. And then other states like California, where the political waves are not really breaking on the beach and not much political agitation is having an impact, but who are continuing to realize how hard it is to implement the Common Core and how long this will take. So this is not going to be something that's over soon. We need to persist. We need to adapt. We need to recognize that classroom implementation is difficult for teachers and will take time. California, I think, realizes all of this, has been working on a phase-in over the years, not trying to force accountability in year 1, using the initial test as a baseline test. So we'll see as the different states go in different directions and the Common Core policies diverge among states more than they have, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago. We'll have to see how this plays out over the various 50 states in the country. The United States has always been a nation of states, and we'll see different state patterns. But the demise of Common Core is far from seeming imminent, and we'll have to wait for further developments.